What's going on everyone on YouTube? Well, it's the Cockney bike. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. You'll be pleased to know that I managed to change out the tint on Shea's windscreen on a beloved Lucifer. I don't know, I've been sort of debating as to how to fix the tint on a windscreen because it was starting to wind me up, like seeing those droopy bits at the top. So I'm like, you know what, sod this. Now I was gonna think about taking it to like a tint shop and have them do it, but then I thought, well, how hard can it be? And it was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. So I ordered the tint from Amazon. It was supposed to be like a tint for like a car light or something. I also got for an extra $7, I got the application kit, which involved like a couple of those little squidgy things that you have to sort of squidge it onto, and like some little tools. It came with this little red cutter, and so you know, it didn't really have an instruction manual to go with it. Just said just go online and do it that way. But unfortunately, the online versions were all about car windows, things like that, whereas this was for a curved windscreen on Shea's bike.
Okay, so the first thing I did was obviously I took everything apart. I opened up the box and I took a look at the actual tint itself. So I'm giving it a good light check over there, brush over. Now it came with like a little red cutter, which isn't shown here, but also with what's it come with? It's like it comes with those. It came also with some those squeegees and some cutting materials, as well as the tint itself, obviously. Now what I did was I originally got the windscreen from Shea's bike, and I gave it a good wash, and then proceeded to douse it down with some alcohol. So I put it under a couple of towels because I didn't want it to become uneven. And then I gave it a wipe down with alcohol. Now this is after washing it. Wanted to make sure it was nice and clean. Just simple cleaning alcohol on the inside of it. I wanted to make sure it was absolutely pristine clean, that there was no grease lumps or anything, nothing tacky. I didn't want to touch it with my fingers and get any grease on it. I wanted to make sure that it was absolutely pristine. Now I kind of took my time when I was doing all of this because I was a bit nervous about doing the tinting myself, because I was kind of thinking that it could be a difficult task.
The actual tint itself was rolled up into as it was delivered, it was already rolled up, so it kind of made handling it a bit weird. So what I did was the part that I cut to measure, and then what I did was I actually re-rolled it in the opposite direction so it would have the effect of flattening it out.
So I laid the tint on the actual windshield itself. Now what I did was I'd already cut it to a rough shape, or at least a rough size of it. Now at this point I'm re-rolling it again because I'm going to use it, and just as I sort of skim it down bit by bit. Now I started with my left side. I pulled a little bit of the tint away from the backing, and I just kind of had it as an overhang by about ½ an inch, so I could make sure that my fingers weren't going to be involved on touching it or anything like that. I smudged it down with my fingers very carefully, and then I just kind of let it down just a little bit further. I pulled some more of the backing off, and then I just let it roll a bit further, only by about an inch or so, and then I got the squeegee out and started kind of working it down, working out all of those bubbles using the soft part of the squeegee, bit by bit, over time, and I just kept going.
So I continued to just work in that fashion until I unrolled it all the way across.
Let it out a bit more, then get the squeegee and get rid of all the air bubbles. And I kept this process going throughout the entire width of the windscreen. Now when I got to about 2/3 of the way over, it was getting a lot easier. But at the same time, the actual windscreen itself started coming away from the towels that I laid down, as I was kind of angling it wrong. One of those sort of things you sort of don't think about when you're doing it. I mean, it wasn't that such a big deal, but it kind of made me feel a bit nervous. So as I was finishing off the squidging, I got to pull the last little bit off and then finished it all off, leaving about another like half an inch over the sides. Went around it again just to make absolutely sure that there's no bubbles. And there it was. Just needed to be cut now. So the kit came with like a nice razor sharp knife, so I could sort of cut around the edges. Now I made my initial cut at like really far from it all, because I just wanted to sort of kind of rough cut it at least to halfway shape, and then kind of do a more detailed cut like on the second and third go around, because I was going to go around this thing at least like 3 times. Now at this point I had Hayden hold it for me, and my instructions to him was, as I cut it, to pull away like evenly, not across the way, in case you unpeeled it from the windscreen itself. So I gently sliced around and he continued to pull it. So he kept pulling it and we got to the end there. There was just a little bit more to go. Now it's on like the bottom end of the actual windscreen itself. And then after that I went round it another couple of times just to make sure that it was like cut right close to the edge. Now what it also meant was that there was a lot of really small, like thin little layers that were cut away that were a real pain to pick up. They're probably still sitting on the table now as we speak, but that's the price of DIY, I suppose. Once again, went round it a couple more times, closer and closer to the edge, slight angle, and then I cut through the holes of the actual screw holes of the windshield itself, which the actual which was like where the brace was held. Had to make sure all the screw holes there were done. Now what I ended up doing was I didn't cut a perfect circle inside, and what I did was I just sort of cut through them, because there wasn't a screw that was going to go through there, but more as a placement bolt. So to me, it just added a little bit more, you know, made it a little bit tighter on there, so it'd hold it a bit more rigidly. And then after that I started assembling the brace and everything onto the windshield, and getting it all put back together again.
But I went out there with the heat gun, and I went along the edges with the heat gun to make sure I kind of like cemented them in there a bit.
Now I'd seen this on a couple of YouTube videos which were sort of demonstrating how they do the tints as well, and that was to take it outside and get a heat gun or a hairdryer on it. I had a heat gun, so I gave it a once over along the edges just to kind of mush it in there, make sure it kind of adhered a bit properly. Now I don't know what good, if any, that would have done, but it was just something I saw, so monkey see, monkey do. Then after that I got Shea to basically take a look at it and see what she thought. She liked it, though she went on to say that she couldn't see much through it.
I would say be careful about which one you pick, because the one that I got was a little bit too dark for Shea. She said it's all right, she can manage with it, but she said if she had a choice she would have picked a lighter version or a more opaque version. What other advice would I give? Yeah, I would say that it's a two-man job. I would advise you have someone there with you, if anything, just to hold on to one edge of it as you cut it to shape, without, you know, risking like peeling it away from where you needed it to stick. I hope you enjoyed watching that video as much as I enjoyed putting it together, and if you did, do me a couple of favours. Give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and if you're new to this channel, there's a subscribe button down there, and there's a couple more videos hovering around here you can check out. This is the Cockney Biker. You take care of yourselves, and as always, laters.